Welcome to today's Hoop-de-Doodle video production. In this video, we'll be looking at the stock wiring for the CB500F. And so this is a project we've been working on. It's a wrecked bike. We're going to rebuild it into something new, metamorph it into some great, beautiful creature. And so one small aspect of doing this is figuring out what the old wiring does. So the wiring on the stock headlight has 6 wires running to it. Why? Today we're going to try and find out what those do and if we need them. And also we're going to take a look at the wiring connectors on this bike because they're modern. They're more functional than connectors on my previous bike build, which were not sealed. These ones are sealed like watertight, which is pretty nice. So we're going to look at those and try and figure out a place to source them so that we can neatly plug in our new aftermarket headlight to the stock wiring harness. So let's dissect this headlight and see if we can learn something. Alright, so with the thought of putting on a new headlight, I'm doing an exploratory look at what the wiring is on the front of the bike. So for the turn signals, we've got these little connectors right here. I figured out how to de-pin, which means pulling the little terminal, this guy, out of the connector housing. It's not too bad on this connector. These connectors, however, are a pain in the butt, and I don't really know what this is exactly, what type of connector this is. I know this one is a Sumitomo brand and type style connector. This is an unsealed one. This is a sealed connector, and I believe this is also a Sumitomo style or brand connector. But there's all these little model numbers, and I can't find one that looks just like this. I can find ones that look similar, but not exactly this one. And plus, in terms of the headlight up here, I'm gonna end up doing a different style connector anyways, because I don't need, this one has 6 pins in it. 6 of these little wires basically in here. And so I don't need 6 wires, I don't think, up here. So that's why we're up here right now, taking a closer look at this in terms of figuring out what all these wires go to. Because as far as I can tell, all these wires, like this connection here that I've got undone, it goes to this connector here, and this connector goes to this headlight and goes somewhere up into here. So we're going to start taking this stuff apart to figure out where all these wires are going, what goes to what, and what I need to keep, what I can get rid of, and why it's doing what it's doing. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this main wire that runs back to here. There are 2 connectors. I've got one connector back here already undone. Underneath this flap, there's another one, a smaller one right here. Go ahead, disconnect that guy as well. I should be able to take this guy off completely. All right, now get into what is going on here. So now basically I'm just going to start disconnecting this thing, or taking it apart more accurately. There's a couple Allen head screws on here. Take those off. Does not want to come off. Now I want to take off the speedometer. I just want to get this thing off here. It's broken anyways. There's 3 screws on here, 1, 2, 3, and that should get my speedometer off of here. I've got this random extra connection here, which seems to be a spare connection for something. I don't know if that is for adding in additional auxiliary features or what that is. I'll have to look that up and see if it tells me in the manual. Right now I'm just going to remove that, disconnect it, and then I'm going to remove this stuff here on the sides. That is for the headlights. Alright, and there's 2 more bolts right there. It's the headlight off. Alright, so now I'm just playing with the headlight, and I've literally got a couple pieces of copper wire jammed into the connection there so that I can connect the battery cables up to here and actually see what powers this thing or what I'm powering. So the headlight itself is, I mean, it's a headlight, it's pretty basic, but there was one thing on here, there's a position light. I believe that's what the wiring diagram is telling me, and I'm curious what the position light is. Right now I've got it wired into what should be the high beam. I attach my little cables here. Alright, so that's the high beam right there. I'm trying to figure out what this position light is. Alright, so I've discovered the position lights. Position lights are those guys right there. So position lights, I'm not really sure when those come on, how they come on normally, but position lights on the stock headlight, there they are. Alright, so I think we've got things figured out on the headlight here in terms of the wiring. I wanted to double check what was going on because there's 6 wires. Most headlights, basic headlight has 3 wires. There's a high beam, a low beam, and a ground. And so this one has those 3, high beam, low beam, and ground, high beam, low beam, and ground, but it also has 2 extra wires for these position lights up here on the top of this headlight. So there's a positive and negative for these lights as well, this whole separate circuit essentially. And then there's also the six connection here is for high beam indicator, which would go to the speedometer and tell you when the high beam is on. So that's it, and so I can easily wire in. Now I know there's nothing really additional on here that I need to count for in terms of the wiring on this thing, so I can easily just eliminate those 2 wires for the position light, and then I'll use the 4 other ones. I do need the high beam indicator, and we'll wire that in without a problem, and that's it. So I can set this guy aside and move on. All right, so thus far I've been able to source the unsealed Sumitomo connectors, the wire connectors. The little orange one, I've been able to source that one, and I've got the parts I need for that and to make that work. But I have not been able to source the gray one, the sealed connector. There's just so much variation in those. I cannot figure out where that one came from or how to get a hold of that style connector. But I think what my plan is I'm going to use a totally different type of connector. I don't need a 6-wire connector anyways. I'm going to go with a much simpler approach to this and make that work. So in the next couple videos, I'm going to be doing headlight work on this bike, which should be exciting because it should bring this thing together and give it a little bit of a personality, give it a face, you know. And also I've got a cool aftermarket headlight for this thing, an LED headlight that is supposed to be top notch in terms of its brightness and actual functionality. So I'm excited about that because it was quite affordable. And so we're going to test that out, compare it to the stock headlight, and see if we can tell a difference, see if one is better or worse. That's something to look forward to in other videos. Thanks for watching this video. Keep on wrenching. We'll see you next time.